Here's the full combined timeline, incorporating the original events you requested and the additional scenario where China seeks to destroy Nintendo's new console, leading to global conflict and escalating tensions. 2055, the Chinese acquisition of Nintendo and the creation of the Nintendo Nexus console. March acquisition announcement. The Chinese government announces it has purchased a controlling stake in Nintendo, with the aim of enhancing cultural collaboration and expanding China's global influence. The move is widely seen as a part of China's broader strategy to extend its soft power. May rebranding to People's Entertainment Collective, PEC, the Chinese government renames Nintendo to People's Entertainment Collective, PEC, and starts integrating Chinese ideology into the company's game development processes. This includes rebranding iconic Nintendo characters, such as Mario, Link, and Donkey Kong, to reflect Chinese values and ideals. July employee re-education camps. Reports emerge that Nintendo's Japanese and international employees are being relocated to government-controlled re-education camps in China. There, they are forced to create content that aligns with Chinese political narratives, while the Chinese government silences any dissent about these forced working conditions. December backlash and boycotts. Fans and activists around the world express outrage over China's acquisition of Nintendo. Major boycotts are organized, especially in Japan and the West. Sony, Microsoft, and other major gaming platforms removed PEC, formerly Nintendo, games from their digital stores. The resulting economic losses further escalate tensions between China and the West. 2056, rising global tensions. January China doubles down on censorship. China enacts laws to ensure that all media, including video games, adhere to strict government guidelines. Foreign games are now banned unless they pass through China's censorship system. These measures extend beyond video games, curtailing all forms of non-state-approved media in China. March PEC releases propaganda games. PEC releases a line of games, using Nintendo's IPs with new, politically charged narratives. These games depict Chinese heroes overcoming foreign enemies, aligning with the state's views on nationalism and patriotism. International outrage grows as the games are seen as tools of government propaganda. August global resentment and diplomatic tensions. The global gaming community protests the censorship of beloved characters, and governments, including Japan and the US, condemn the rebranding of Nintendo. Trade and diplomatic tensions between China and the West increase significantly. 2057, the rise of the Nintendo Nexus. January Nintendo's new vision. In the midst of the backlash, the Chinese government, now firmly in control of PEC, unveils a new, ambitious project, the Nintendo Nexus. This new console is designed to revolutionize the gaming experience with advanced high-end internet connectivity. However, behind the scenes, it is revealed that the Nexus includes a tracking system capable of monitoring every user's gaming activity, behaviors, and even physical location through connected mobile apps. March China targets Nintendo Nexus, fearing that the Nintendo Nexus could be used for espionage, especially by the US and other Western powers. China becomes increasingly alarmed. The console's potential to collect vast amounts of personal data and track global users is seen as a major threat to China's sovereignty and information control. April covert Chinese operations to destroy the Nexus. China deploys a team of spies and hackers to infiltrate Nintendo's headquarters in Tokyo. Their goal is to steal the Nintendo Nexus design files, sabotage the console's development, and prevent it from reaching global markets. They succeed in gaining access to sensitive information and introduce malicious code into the software, causing technical delays. June Nintendo Nexus released amid controversy. Despite the sabotage, the Nintendo Nexus is released, but the international response is mixed. The console's capabilities are groundbreaking, but concerns about its tracking functionality raise alarms, especially in the US and Europe. Some governments began investigating the device, calling it a global surveillance tool. 2058, China's covert war against the Nexus and global conflict brewing. January China attacks Nexus software. The Chinese government launches a cyber attack on the Nintendo Nexus servers in an attempt to disrupt its launch and cripple its surveillance capabilities. However, these efforts are unsuccessful due to Nintendo's enhanced cybersecurity measures. April Chinese agents uncovered at Nintendo HQ. The Chinese agents who infiltrated Nintendo's Tokyo headquarters are exposed and expelled. In response, the Chinese government vows to take more drastic measures to prevent the Nintendo Nexus from achieving global success. July China's strategy shifts to retaliation. After the failure of their covert operations, China's leadership decides on a more extreme measure to counter the perceived threat of the Nintendo Nexus. They begin to develop plans for a direct attack, seeing the console as a tool for U.S. surveillance and geopolitical control. 2059, China's nuclear retaliation and global conflict. January China decides on nuclear retaliation, with diplomatic efforts failing and the Nintendo Nexus gaining traction in global markets. The Chinese government views the device as a symbol of Western influence, fearing that it will provide the U.S. and NATO with unprecedented surveillance capabilities. They decide to launch a nuclear attack against Seattle, Washington, a major tech hub, in an attempt to neutralize the perceived threat. March China drops a nuclear bomb on Seattle. In an act of unprecedented aggression, China launches a nuclear strike on Seattle, blaming the Nintendo Nexus for what they claim is an American-led global surveillance program designed to undermine Chinese sovereignty. The attack kills hundreds of thousands and devastates the city. International condemnation is swift, but China defends the strike as a necessary action to safeguard its people from foreign influence. April The U.S. declares war on China. The U.S. government, enraged by the attack, immediately declares war on China. NATO allies, fearing further nuclear escalation, begin mobilizing their forces to counter China's growing aggression. The conflict quickly escalates into full-scale warfare, as China's attack on Seattle is seen as a direct act of war against the U.S. and its allies. May full-scale Sino-NATO war erupts. The global conflict explodes as China retaliates against NATO cyber attacks and military incursions, while NATO forces target Chinese infrastructure, communications, and military assets. The war shifts from conventional battles to cyber warfare, with both sides engaging in digital and space-based skirmishes. 2060, the war reaches a breaking point. January China's internal collapse. As the war drags on, China's economy starts to collapse under the weight of sanctions, military losses, and internal unrest. Protests erupt in major cities as food and resources become scarce. The Communist Party's grip on power begins to weaken, leading to infighting within China's leadership. March NATO forces advance in the Pacific. NATO forces begin to take control of critical shipping routes and Chinese territories in the South China Sea. The pressure mounts on China, both externally from NATO and internally from a growing opposition movement. June end of the war, ceasefire negotiations begin. After months of brutal conflict, both sides agree to a ceasefire, brokered by international mediators. The U.S. and China sign an armistice, agreeing to de-escalate military operations and enter into peace talks. 2061, the restoration of Nintendo. January the People's Entertainment Collective, PAC, dissolved. As part of the peace treaty, China is forced to dismantle all state-controlled companies, including PAC, which is renamed back to Nintendo. The company is returned to Japanese ownership, and a new management team is put in place to rebuild the company's reputation. February Nintendo Nexus relaunches with new privacy features. Nintendo re-releases the Nintendo Nexus, this time without the controversial surveillance features. The console is marketed as a symbol of innovation, privacy, and resilience. Its relaunch is seen as a victory for creative freedom, and Nintendo begins the process of recovering lost markets. 2062 to 2065, rebuilding a war-torn world. April global rebuilding efforts. The world begins the difficult process of rebuilding after the devastating conflict. Economies are restructured, and the digital landscape is reset. Nintendo, as a symbol of recovery, helps lead the charge in creating new, transparent digital platforms that respect user autonomy. June Nintendo becomes a symbol of innovation and freedom, with the Nintendo Nexus now reintroduced and free from surveillance controversy. Nintendo emerges as a symbol of freedom, creativity, and technological progress. The console, representing the triumph of artistic vision over political interference, becomes a global hit, and Nintendo reclaims its iconic status. September: the digital future of gaming and unity. As the world heals, Nintendo leads efforts to ensure that gaming and digital entertainment remain forces for good. The company works with governments and global organizations to create new standards for digital privacy, freedom of expression, and international collaboration. This combined timeline weaves the original narrative of China's acquisition of Nintendo, the creation of the Nintendo Nexus as a tool for surveillance, China's covert and then catastrophic military response, and the eventual global war that results in Nintendo's restoration. It demonstrates how technological development intended to innovate the gaming world could set off a series of events leading to devastating conflict, only to be ultimately restored as a symbol of hope and resilience. For many,